Welcome. This is Crime Queen. And if you're joining us for the first time, this is the channel where we get excited about love. This is where we ignite that which comes from within us, that which comes alive, makes us smile. Hence, we say the crimson light is life. So, the crimson light is our journey to actualizing self-full love. Now, I have used the word crimson. I am seeing actually the word cream, and it actually seemed to denote perhaps we're having a very creamy session here, and one of nice consistency, I am hoping, of course, and palatable. So stick around. All right. So we have done presentations on limbs. We have looked at various features. In fact, they are called features to actualizing self love. So you may see neck as features to actualizing self-love, or hands and nails features to actualizing self-love. This is for the purpose of trying to understand how we are identifying with the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. We are trying to understand and make sense of how this story has been so embedded in our psyche. Could it mean that there has been more to the story than we have given thought to? It's about raising our consciousness. In fact, it's about knowing, what has, we like they'd say, what happened? But what happened to us? We can only say or try to make sense of what happened to us through that story, because we weren't there. That is what we have been taught, whether we believe it to be true or not, but that is the story that has been written and has passed on to us. So, of course, with having such a story, or knowing that we have heard such a sad story, of course, it has its joyous part as well, but that Christ was crucified, we are talking about nails to the hands and feet, and being spat on, and these are the things that we were taught. Now, of course, we are able to identify with such a story because we know what it's like to be mistreated. We know what it's like to perhaps have a little cut to our fingers and scream for help, or to see blood gushing down. So we know those elements of that story have got some impact on us to some extent. But however, it's about the purpose of the story as well. How do we identify with this? That we were so sinful, after God had tried with the children of Israel, or descend from who we ascend or descend, or mankind, if you like, just mankind, and that they were so stubborn, but he had to send his only begotten son to die for us. So these are the things we are trying to make sense of. What sin did we commit, or what had been passed on, that really deserve such a sacrifice? Okay, and do we feel happy about that? Do we feel a sense of guilt about that? If we do, how do we deal with this? Are we really conscious of exactly what sense we have made of such a story and how it has impacted our lives? These are the things that we are hoping that we can become aware of where we're at. Because as it is said, nothing can come. Well, I was going to quote Emmett Fox, but the point really I think I want to say is that we can't move forward or shift or move without getting a sense of where we're at or where we are coming from, or if we want to move or if we want to remain where we're at. But again, nothing is absolute. We are forever moving. We are forever growing. There's always something happening. There's always a shift. So we might as well be conscious with whatever shift that is evolving in and around us. Okay, so basically, hoping that we can capture the essence of whatever that means, something that resonates with us. Put it this way, I suppose if it resonates, it would be an essence to us in actual fact. So this is wonderful. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, of course, this is Eve. Now, this is Eve with her third eye open. This has happened incidentally or synchronistically, I will say, that Eve eye has been open. Mother Eve. Mother Eve, of course, ate of the fruit. Well, we are told it's an apple, but ate of the fruit and, of course, was enlightened. Now, if you are new to this, I have covered the story in different ways. The word "et" comes to eight, and I am believing that is exactly what it means about the eyes were open, because the word "I" as well comes to eight. So this eight with the "I" and eight with the word "et" or "eat," to eat something, also equals eight. So this to me, oh, and of course the other thing as well is that the word Eve also takes us into this dimension, which is central. So that central column here is the five, because Eve comes to five, comes into this fifth column, and we see as we use the word sacrifice as a template, her eye was open. And of course, shared with her husband, so their eyes were open. Now, so here we see that the two, Adam and Eve, Eve, of course, is one, and Adam, let's see, I think Adam is the word Adam. Let's just do this. So Eve is, it's just come to mind to do this. So we do 5, 4, and 5. So this is 14. 14, 1 and 4 is 5. Okay, Adam. That's 1, 4, 1, 4. I like this. So we see, in fact, I'm glad I'm doing this way, because we see that they are 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. Now that to me is very symbolic. That to me tells a lot, because it is like the foundation of something. It's also number 14. Is 1 and 5, of course. 1 and 5, 1 and 4 is 5. 5 is central. We see that 5 is at the peak of, you could say, the roof, the top of the roof, with having 4 posts. And so that to me is very essential and symbolic. Also, we are told that Christ, from the scriptures, is that had come from the generations of 14. Christ is of 14, and a 14 generation, of a generation of 14. So we see that 14 is here, and that is showing a direct descendance or correlation with Christ and Adam and Eve. There's that glue right here. So 1, 5, 1, 4, that's 5 and 5, and that's also 10. So 10 equals 1. So 1 and 5 is 6, which means that we are, this is how we see that 6 comes into what we are, the 6 days of creation. The 6, Christ or God created us on the 6th day. Genesis also equals the number 6. So we see that 6, that which we are, is really showing right here. So there we are with Adam and Eve, and of course they were in that 6, that fox position. So there is another position here, and that position would be of one of orientation, where Adam, of course, him and the wife, of course, have found themselves in this fox position, where they get their orientation. And it's no wonder it is also said that God sent them to the far east of the garden. So they would have had a sense of direction as to where to go to the far east end of the garden. It's the east end of the garden. Now we also know that in the word east equals 9. I am um, going through these, and I know I have covered them, but it's a way of getting this template that we have here to understanding that structure of the template. So when we have got this well established, we can begin to hang or hinge more words of essence or meanings onto this. So the word is 2115. So 5 and 2 here, 7 and 2, 9. So this they were sent to number 9. So basically, when you have come to new, you are open to, you are in a position, which is where I began with this, to really go into what I call the inland revenue to pay your dues. This is why they were sent to the east of the garden. If we remember, there is the command, if it were command, that they should go and multiply. And Eve were to bring forth children, and Adam was to till the ground. Of course, these are things we are going to explore. But in that exploration, what we are doing now is that we are understanding that they were from this 1 to 4, which has been in their names, in both names, in both Adam and Eve. We see that the number 14 has been reflected, and of course that got them into that new section. The two together now with their eyes open, no have no choice than to have their eye open here while they travel there in their gypsy journey, going from 5 to 7, of course, doing their gypsy journey, and of course have, if you do that gypsy journey, have eaten of the fruit where your eye is open, because the 8 represents the eye being open. They ate. So this is giving it's like doing a summary, adding 1 and 1 together or 4 and 4 together. And of course, in fact, saying that, let's just add all the numerical values. I'm not sure if it's going to make much difference, but perhaps not at all, because Adam was 14, 14. That would be 5 and 5, and Eve was 5. So 3 5s are 16, meaning that they would still be in that new section. And 16, 3 5s are 15, is 1 and 5 is 6. So we see 6 also shows up here. And in case you're new to this, we've done this before. So we add all these columns together and we get 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. And of course, I am waiting and hoping for the day that I get a deeper significance to these numbers, because I know they really mean much more than just, they have just much more to them. Of course, if we add this together of each section, we get 999. So we get this here, 9 here, 9 here, and 9 here. 3 9s are 27, would still come to 9. So perhaps it's a way of showing us that anything we are doing, being at any given moment, there is a 9. It goes from 1 to 9. It perhaps is showing us, because we can take this down again, as I say, 3 9s are 27. Now I am happy to be again just in my mind saying 3 9s are 27. So we add this, we get 2 7. 2:7 is perhaps really showing us the nature of what really happens in any process. Or for anything to really happen, there must be a gel, a unified spirit that would entail, that would make such a connection for anything to, or situation, or scenario, or event to happen, like God creating. We hear that when God said, "Let us make man in our image and likeness" in Genesis, that meant that there had to be another entity. That is the essence of that text. There was another entity in that creation. So we see here again that Christ was repeating that in the two section here, in the number 2 column, which comes into 6. So basically, when God said, for instance, "Let us make man in our image and likeness," there was another entity under this A, which is also denoting 1, but also denoting 3. And perhaps we could say from this stage here was also the seed of the Trinity in this, because A is of 3 strokes, 1, 2, 3. So we could also say that that was one feature here as well. Father, Son, like Christianity teaches that Christ was with God, or and again, in my understanding, I would have thought that the serpent was there as well, or Lucifer was there as well. Okay. So this is my understanding, and I don't know how it is for you. But the number 2:7 here is giving a very clear indication of God being in this creative mode here, bonding in agreement to create, bonding in agreement to create, to make, to form, to give life, and so on. And we see it there with Christ's crucifixion, for example, with the Last Supper. This is very pinnacle. As I have showed before, we know that Christ had 12 disciples from the story. So 12 disciples, and Christ being 13. So there were 13 people at that table. We have the pictures of the Last Supper with 13. The number 13 is that in having that union of drinking of wine and breaking of bread, there was a bond. Before bond, we could say. There was a bond here. And even before this had taken place, we also get from Luke chapter 2. It seemed like it's the only scripture verse that I know right now. right now. But in Luke chapter 22, and from about verse 11, because those are master numbers as well, that are giving us from the number 22, tying in very nicely with that. And not only in that sense, in the number 13, if we were to add 1 and 3 together, it would equal 4, just as if we were to add 2 and 2 together, would also equal 4. So in that story with Luke of chapter 22, there is where Christ is also inquiring about the high chamber of where, or the guest chamber, the guest chamber where they are meant to be having that Last Supper. This is giving the indication of a Last Supper is taking place in the high or in the guest chamber. So it's the master is going to have his Last Supper in the guest chamber. Okay, so this is the story, and the word master, as we have learned, also equals 22. So it's 5 and 1, 4 and 1, 5 and 1, 6 and 2, 8, 8 and 5 is 13, 13 and 9 is 22. 13 and 9, that's, yeah, 22. So we see that 22, and of course how 13 is really playing a very significant role in this structure here, particularly in that B, in that bucket of wine or basket of bread that was broken. This is where agreements were done. There had to be a degree of harmony, a degree of understanding, a degree of fellowship, and that sort of thing that had happened here. So I am believing that 27 is very significant and symbolic of that journey that Christ had taken in this sense. Of course, on here, this is on the number 7. So we have the 2. So we have the number 2, which falls on the 9. It's the 9th section. Of course, we know he would have to be in this section because the word Christ, Christ, that is 2, 1, 9, 9, 8, and 3. So I count like this: 9 and 9, 18, and 2, 20. And then we have 11, that is 31, and 1, 32. So 3 and 2 is 5. So of course Christ would come to that section again. So in actual fact, this is really sort of showing 3 stages. It is like we have blocks of 3 here, a block of 3 here, another block of 3 here, but each block of 3 is denoting that 9. Okay. The 7 now. So we see from this section here, and perhaps this is indicating the whole construct of what happens in each section. It's as though each section is offering an individual an opportunity to open their third eye. And this is what I'm believing that the sacrifice to mean. And I am saying this because when we go by the template that we have been exploring, it's about opening the third eye. And I think that came very clear to us on Mother Eve. Mother Eve is like our grandmothers or our mothers. They are so loyal. You know, they want to know that you are going to be okay. They want to know that when they pass on, you are all right. They'll put things in place. They will leave photographs. They will leave prayers. They will leave sentiments that they believe will serve us. And that's what Mother Eve has done. So we see we also use the word revelation. I'm just trying to capture the essence of the template here. So we use the revelation. Let's take revelation. Okay, we remember, we'll go back to these numbers. So revelation, REVELATION. So revelation consists of 10 letters, while sacrifice is of 9 letters, but the 10 letters correlate with the numerical value of 10 for sacrifice, and revelation is actually 13. So I have been going on about 13. I have been going on about the 2-column here, which again emphasizes the point that I have made earlier, that 13 is like revelation, is revealing to us the essence of that 13 of where the Last Supper had taken place in the upper room, in the guest chamber. the upper room in the guest chamber. We see that B. In fact, I have got some um, presentations where I have had encounters with B in a synchronistic way to have taught me the essence of that B here. This is where the word busyness comes into place. Busy bee. This is the bond. This is the belly. These are the B words that derive from this column here. And of course we see the K here. For K, it also has this less than stroke. It's that less than symbol and a stroke here. It's like really giving a precise measure or a precise demarcation of something in that section. Okay. T, of course, which we have here, it's like a nail. So here we are saying these really seem to have parts of, so we have the T, representing the nails. We could say that the T representing nails. By the way, the word nail equals 9, which takes us to the whole inland revenue. So the T is like a nail, Nail, which is 9. The K is like the table with 2 legs. So we could say that's the table that they was sat on. And the B is the bread and wine, or for representing the blood. So we could say that. But I believe these are going to unfold much nicer. When I say nicer, making even clearer sense as we go along, because they probably have so much layers to their meanings. I believe that's what is happening. So I was talking about Revelation, however, and we see that this is where Eve comes into that place here. We see how, now this is another thing that is very transparent here. So Eve was 14. So in that creation, or when God just created Adam and Eve, you could say, we see from 1 to 4, here is 1 to 4 here. 1 to 4 is here. This 4 here also offers a degree of completion to the number 9 in itself, because the letter R here also equals 9. So we see, if we were to put a numerical value on here, this would be 9. But it's like a beginning and an end in a sense, because it also has that 3 here. So it's as if Eve is telling a story of what happens in that developmental stage. So Eve is actually showing, well, okay, we are here. And of course with R, because the beginning and the end is the same. It's like God is saying, in fact, I love it. In Revelation is, the first letter is R and the last letter is N. And we see that the numerical value here is also 14. This is 9, this is 5. 9 and 5 is 14. 1 and 4 is also 5. Now, talking of Revelation, as I say as well, the first letters of the Bible, when we begin to read Genesis, it's really in the beginning. This also equals 14. 1 and 4 is 5. So Revelation is, I'm drawing this example to show that Revelation is the last chapter of the Bible, but it takes us back to the first letter, the first letters, the first word, I-N, in the Bible. It's like it's revealing to us. Of course, if it's the last, it has got, so it is showing us 9 and 5. It's like 5 is really, it's as if it's our new beginning. 5 is the new It's not as if it's our new beginning. So this is where Eve and Adam, they were there, but they got to this point here, which this is denoting that four points, north, south, east, and west, where they had to get their orientation together. It's like they were in the school of life because they had eaten of the fruit, and so there was a newness happening, a new life, a new exploration. They were seeing things in a new way, and so they had to behave in new ways. Of course, the new is right here. You could see that Revelation is actually indicating that the feet is going around. They are reveling and they are elated, and there is elation, in that which that they are doing. So, or they have done. So we could see a story is developing here quite nicely. They go into the Fox City. Of course, when you have had something new, and you go through, you perhaps talk about it or you explore it, and you find yourself with new responsibilities. And of course, that's what happened when they went to Fox City. So I am saying, I am drawing this together. I want to bring this together because I have done quite a few presentations on this, and I'd really like to be able to capture the essence of all of those presentations, which is quite a lot, but to show how everything marries into each other very perfectly, that the story itself is quite succinct in the sense that there's harmony and there is evidence, or we could say evidence, or everything is really tying in very well. So this is what I would ideally love to do. So there we are. In case you have been following me and I'm repeating this, but this is what I am attempting to do here. Okay, so as well, we had water as one of the transparent as a transparent reflection to show us, because we had WATER, and here again we see that R, like 5 and 9, because R is also 9. So it is also showing us at this point that as if that phase, so the three phases here, but water takes us to the middle of the second phase. When you are in that middle of the second phase, it's like someone had taken you on a ride and you say, look, I'm okay from here, which is what happened with Satan and Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ was in the new. He had finished fasting, and then he was, of course, at a new place. And Satan said to him, well, if you are the Son of God, because, of course, after fasting, he's hungry, and said, well, you are the Son of God, why don't you turn those stones into bread? And this is where Christ would have had to say to him, get thee behind me, because Christ was in this new place, but he also had his eye open here. And so with that realization, Satan could not go any further with him unless Christ had agreed to really maybe him carrying Satan along with him, because the word Satan, let's look at this. And we have done the story of Job as well, that also shows this. So the word Satan, S-A-T, which comes under that T with water as well, A-N. And we see, this is what I mean about when N and R gets together, there seems to be that synchronicity being reflected, because R and N is also 14. That's that 14 that keeps showing up. So under this column, by right, Satan's name we could see here is Satan. The N comes only as far as here, only as far as this column, but he is not extended beyond this part, which, as I have said in my previous presentations, when I was changing those letters around, I did change the letters around here to number 5, but without me having the foresight of what was going to develop onto that side, I had no inclination whatsoever to change the letters from Fox to Inland Revenue. So we can see this is really an intuitive way of looking at sacrifice, but this is what Christ has asked us to do: to trust, to have faith, to believe. And in those, and the word believe as well equals number 6, now number 33, which is a master number. And faith, to have faith, is equals 8. Now to have, of course, 8 is the same. We eat, EAT. When we eat of the fruit, our third eye is open. This is what Christ has asked us to do. He says the answer of whatever it is you want is within you. It is within you. The answer is the truth lies within us. Truth is number 6. It is in our makeup. So it's like saying to us, we don't have to be looking on the external for the answers that we are looking at or looking for. I mean, I have done this. I'm not a scientist or anything to that effect, but it is that intuition that I have followed through, and I am seeing that there is a correlation developing very well here. And as I say, bringing these in together is the same reason when God said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? Of course, Job's name, Job, the word Job, J-O-B, Job. Of course, if we look at the letters here, we see that J comes here, B comes here because there was an agreement. There had to be a bond, whether the bond was between God and Job, or between Satan and God, or between Satan and Job. But there was bonding happening here. But this here, it comes under the Fox. It passes the new section. And there was a condition that God had given to Job, that he was not to take Job's life. He was not to lay his hand on Job. I put it this way, but it might have been not take his life away. But he couldn't take his life away because he couldn't put his hand on him. So if he couldn't put his hand on him, that meant Job was able to go in this section, and in getting his orientation together, going around his north, south, east, and west. Yes, it sounded like he had a mental breakdown, but he was still in this section where Satan could not have reached him, because Satan could come to the new. As we know, Satan could go to the new because it was in that new, after Christ's new section, after Christ had fasted, he was able to reach or meet with Christ and say to turn the stones into bread. He was able to meet with Job even in the new section, from the new section, because he ends on N in the new section, but he was not supposed to lay a hand on Job because Job could move there. Hence, we are always told that, or we always hear that a lot of people say when they are newborn babes as a Christian, that's when it becomes most difficult for them. Of course, that's after the honeymoon, if you like, of finding Christ. After that honeymoon period, that's when they get very, very challenged, because Satan is in that new section with them. He is there playing and messing and reminding them of what it was like for them in their jazz days, or whatever agreement that they had done in that when they were feasting and drinking and misbehaving. Perhaps when you're drinking and get intoxicated, of course, you don't too care about whether Satan is around or not. We all having fun together, and that's what happens there. And he is there reminding you, oh, but why don't you do this and why don't you do that? Because he might have been in an ego way of seeing and doing things. Okay. And basically, we see that this section really, like even with water, reflects the water element, reflects that newness. It's like you have been on a river, on a water ride, and it takes you into that new section. Isn't that lovely? And perhaps that is where you get baptized, of course, in that newness. Because even Christ, too, we are told, got baptized by John the Baptist. So it was in that newness. Isn't that delicious? Isn't that wonderful? I really think so, And so we see that if with the story of Job, just encapsulating the story of Job, the story of Eve, the story of Adam, Adam would come into this here, this section as well, Adam. He would come to this section. We can't leave Adam out. Let's look at this fairly. Yes. So Adam, yes. So we see that Adam would be doing the jazz thing here as well. So Adam, of course, we know from the story was born first, and so was doing that section. And in the D, so he's D going Adam. So he's in that he's been doing that dance in the Adam. And of course we had Eve. Eve, of course, we see Eve. Eve, it kind of reminds me, I must say, some wives as well in many relationships, they seem to be more forward than their husband. They seem to be the one doing the inquiry and say, well, tell me about that fruit. What is it like? Is it sweet? When they go shopping, the wife does all the talking, most of the talking, I would say, in my experience, I certainly would. I would be the one asking the questions. So that's what had happened. You can see Eve was going forward. She's the one moving forward. She's the one who gives the fruit to the husband. Of course, in whatever way you want to really look at this story, but this is what we are looking at now. So we see that the two, Adam and Eve, they come to the 6, they come into Fox City, they get their orientation there. They had to do their gypsy journey to be able to open their third eye. You see, the third eye was open on their gypsy journey. It's like you go along doing all your sightseeing. You do the sightseeing and you think, oh yes, I noticed that tree, I noticed that flower, and everything seemed to just come alive. And that's what has happened when they went to pay their dues in high quarters and headquarters zone. Of course, with that, they had to pay the inland revenue. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you have found it fun. This is Mother Eve, and I'm thanking Mother Eve for teaching us this wonderful lesson and for, really revealing her presence in that we could feel elated, in that elation, in that reveling of hers, in that, of course, and it's a level when we go, or a lever when we take it back. So that's what revelation does. You can uncover and cover. This is wonderful. So I hope you have found this insightful. I hope you have found it fun. I hope it makes perfect sense. But we will be periodically covering aspects of those the essence of those symbols and significance that we have captured in this presentation. So if you like this presentation, click the like button and share, because this is how we do it. We share to actualizing self-full love. Now, in the meantime, stay blessed, stay bright, be blissful, and stay ignited. Namaste. And spill over with love.